Well, here we are, friends. One more game to go in the original trilogy about our favourite sentient eggplant thing, which I know for a fact I played back in the day, but honestly, have no memories of. Except for at one point screaming,
"I hate this game!"
To which my dear, tired old father in all his wisdom would reply pithily, "Well, what are you playing it for then?" Which, I mean, he had a point, I guess. But what would inspire me to make such an emotional and heartfelt declaration? Well, I guess we'll just have to dive in and find out. And yeah, that's about it for the intro. Not much more to say, except that we're still trying to reach 1,000 subscribers, so if you enjoy my content and have yet to subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it if you would do so. And with that out the way, let's get into it. So Rayman 3, Hoodlum Havoc, was once again developed by Ubi Pictures and published by soon-to-be non-existent Ubisoft in 2003. It was on PS2, Xbox, GameCube and PC, and there was also a version on Game Boy Advance. But unlike Rayman 2, the main console versions are all pretty much identical in terms of gameplay and structure, so we won't bother comparing them so much, although we might take a look at the Game Boy version as well. We get started and once more get ourselves a little introduction to show us the latest goings on in the fantastical world of Rayman. But there's trouble afoot, cause we've got this malodorous looking little guy going around turning all the nice red lums into evil, nasty black ones. Oh, so the black lums are the bad ones, are they? That's what you're saying, is it? I see. That's a bit, yeah, it was a different time, you know, so, let's just move on. But anyway, the black lums quickly multiply and start causing chaos throughout the forest. They're eating her! And then they're gonna eat me!
Oh my god!
Not gonna lie, for a second I thought they were actually eating it and there was just gonna be a pile of bones left. But it gets worse, cause then the evil black lums come together to form these nasty creatures what kind of look like if you crossed Oogie Boogie from Nightmare Before Christmas with the Creeper from Jeepers Creepers, don't you think? We then find our hero and his trusty friend Glowbox just chilling in the middle of the deep dark woods, but rest's gonna have to wait cause the Hoodlum Horde is on the way, but that's okay cause old Ray saved the day if he could be bothered to get his lazy arse up. And man, old Ray must just be the heaviest sleeper in the entire world, considering he manages to sleep through that great oaf Glowbox literally ripping his hands off before running off with them. Yeah, thanks for that, mate. And then it's up to Murphy, the flying frog thing, to fly us to safety. And with that out the way, we're dropped straight into the action where we're controlling Murphy as he flies us through the forest. And it's just an on rails bit where you've got to grab all the red lums along the way to build up your health. And you better make sure to get all of them, because if you don't, then you've got to go around again until you do. And after that, we then get into the tutorial, although still minus our hands, so we're pretty much just a literal walking eggplant thing now. But aside from that, the basic gameplay is more or less the same as the previous game. You're just running around, collecting stuff and platforming etc. Although we are also introduced to a couple new concepts. For starters, we now have this new arcade style level score mechanic where you earn points by doing various things, mainly collecting stuff but also smashing containers and defeating enemies etc. And in addition to the main score, you've also got this combo bit which will increase as you do the previously mentioned acts in quick succession, with the points earned being added to your main score at the end of the combo. So that's kinda cool, although to be honest there's not much point to it. You don't really get anything for earning points, except for a bunch of extra stuff like mini games and whatnot, but you don't need to progress through the game. But anyway, after we've made it out of the tutorial, we get our hands back and can again enjoy them just as God intended, by beating the shit out of anyone dumb enough to get in our way. So yeah, not really sure what the point was of taking them in the first place, if you're just gonna give them back pretty much straight away. Just don't really see why that was necessary, to be honest. We've got pretty much all the same abilities as in the previous games. You can run, jump, hang on ledges, climb up walls and hang from ceilings, punch with your telescopic fist, which actually is your fist this time and not just throwing your magic balls around. You can use your helicopter hair and you can also swim again, although it doesn't play as big a role this time around. One new thing you can do is curve your punches by moving side to side while throwing your fists to hit targets what are protected from the front, like how they would curve the bullet in that daft fucking Wanted movie. Curve the bullet. Piss off. But probably the biggest new feature in this one is these tin can things you come across what change your clothes and temporarily give you extra abilities. Like you've got the green can what makes you throw out whirlwinds what can shrink enemies and move these screw-shaped platforms. You've got the red ones what make your fists stronger so you do more damage and smash through doors and shit. The blue ones what give you metal claws or whatever so you can swing on the flying hooks, just like with the flying oath things in the previous games. And you can also use them to electrocute enemies. You've got the orange ones what let you fire guided missiles to hit buttons and switches and whatnot what you can't hit otherwise. And then there's the yellow ones what let you fly for a couple seconds. So anyway, you've just got to follow Glowbox through the Fairy Council and chase down Andre, the leader of the Black Lums, who's planning to turn the heart of the world into an army of his own evil, wretched kind. But no need to worry, because then the daft lump ends up eating the ne'er-do-well. Well, that's that, I guess. World saved, right? Well, no, because turns out Andre is still alive inside the silly gonk's gut, and now I've got to get the little fucker out. Well, can't we just wait for, you know, nature to take its course? That'd be funny as. And to be honest, given this game's sense of humour, I would have thought they'd at least give that a try. But apparently not, and instead we've got to get the fat dunce to a doctor to get the little flying black tumour out of him. And yeah, that's pretty much the story. Just going around on your epic quest, consulting with various physicians to figure out how to excise the little guy, while fighting his minions along the way. Truly a journey on par with that of the Fellowship itself. So while the gameplay is largely the same as in the previous game, there are a few other differences. The game is a bit more linear this time around. Like whereas in Rayman 2 the levels were a bit more open and there was more opportunity for you to explore, particularly in the PS2 version with the open hub areas, here there's not so much. There's no hall of doors or the front or whatever it was called. There's really just one way through, and there's no going back between levels, which we saw a bit of in Rayman 2 as well. In fact, you can't even replay levels at all, at least not until you finish the main game. And as was noted by various reviews at the time, despite it being a 3D platformer, there's less focus on platforming and instead a greater emphasis on combat and puzzle solving. Now that's not to say there isn't much platforming in the game, because there most definitely is, especially in the later levels, some of which actually becomes pretty intricate and challenging as you get further into the game, a lot more so than what we saw in Rayman 2. And to be honest, I think the reviews at the time got that part a bit wrong. I think there is just as much platforming as in the previous game, hell maybe even a bit more. It's just that the other aspects, like combat, are more fleshed out, so it just seems like there's less focus on platforming. But yeah, the basic gameplay is pretty good. The controls and movement continue to be decent. Like in the previous game, particularly the PS2 version, they're quick and responsive without being too light so as to feel like you're not in control. Again, there were no points where I got stuck or felt that the controls got me killed. The camera could be a little annoying at times. See, while for the most part it just follows along behind you and you can control it freely with the right stick, there are a few points where it switches to a fixed angle where you can't move it yourself, usually during some of the harder platforming bits. And that was fine for the most part, but there were a couple times where it made it harder for me to properly judge a jump, so then I would end up missing and having to make back lost progress. So yeah, that could be a bit irritating, but it's not a huge issue. But like I said, combat plays a much bigger role this time around, since whereas in Rayman 2 you would encounter the Cylon pirates pretty much only occasionally, here you encounter the Hoodlum creeper things much more often, pretty much constantly throughout the majority of the game. And the combat's fine, it's not much more complicated than in the previous game. Once again, your main weapons are your magic disembodied hands, what you just use to fist every arsehole you come across, pure and simple, and you can again charge up your fist for maximum impact. And you also get a couple extra attacks from the power can things. We've also got a much wider range of enemies this time, unlike in Rayman 2 where it was pretty much just the pirates, of which there were a few different types, but aside from some having more health than others, they were all pretty much the same. But here, the enemies are a lot more varied. There are many more types with different behaviours and abilities. Some use different weapons like guns and bombs. There's support enemies what will protect the others and who you've got to take out first before you can harm them. And then there's some that you can only beat by using certain strategies and abilities. Like you've got the stilt walking ones what you can only defeat by using the whirlwind power from the green can. And there's larger enemies who can only be harmed with the stronger fists you get from the red can. So yeah, while it's not particularly complex, the combat is fun and engaging enough that it never feels boring or repetitive. The main collectibles this time are the jewels you find throughout each level, and of course we've again got the cages to smash, this time containing members of the Teensy tribe who I guess have been captured by the Hoodlums. Again, you'll always know when they're nearby cause you can hear the whiny fuckers inside begging for help, although they don't really seem all that enthusiastic about it this time. And while like in Rayman 2 you don't have to smash every cage, there are some that you do need to smash to progress further, since whereas some just give you more jewels, others will give you some of the power can things that you need to get past certain obstacles, so you won't be able to go any further until you do. But also like in Rayman 2, even though you don't have to smash all of them, it's still a good idea to get as many as you can, since when you do smash a cage, a jewel gets added to a medallion, just like in Rayman 1, and for every 6 you smash, the medallion's filled and your health is increased slightly. So yeah, as I used to say about all my friends as mothers back in the day, gotta smash them all! Man, I hope none of them are listening right now. And of course, we again have to address the question of difficulty. Is this one any harder than the previous title? Is it as much of a rancid little shitheel as the original? Thankfully no, nowhere near, but it is a bit harder than Rayman 2, although again I didn't find it to be terribly difficult. There's all the same stuff from the second game, regular checkpoints, a proper health meter and plenty to pick up, no lives or game overs or any of that shite. You die, you just go back to your last checkpoint or the start of the section you're on. So even when things do get more challenging, the game is still a lot more reasonable than the original. But like I said, I did still find this one to be a bit harder than Rayman 2. Some of the platforming bits could get pretty intricate, the combat's a bit more challenging what with the greater variety of enemies, and some of the boss fights could be a bit annoying, but on the whole I never found anything to be too difficult. You shouldn't have too much trouble with it. And speaking of boss fights, we eventually come to this bit, and I think this just might be the bit where 9-year-old me uttered those timeless words in the intro. I don't know, something about this bit just seems really familiar, and after playing it again all these years later, yeah, I could see why I would have said those words at the time, cause yeah, this part was a bit of a ball ache, even now. Basically, you've got this knobhead chasing you around with his great big puppet leg things trying to crush you. And to beat him, you first got to step on the 3 illuminated switches dotted around the arena, which then makes the orange can what lets you fire missiles appear at the centre. You grab it and then shove a cruise missile right up the sorry wanker's arse. Sounds simple, right? But the annoying thing is, once you make the orange can appear, the arsehole immediately stomps over to it and crushes it. So then you've got to go around and press all the buttons again. So then you're having to try and lead him away from the centre so you can get to the can first. But he moves pretty fast since he can cover more ground with every step. And it's hard to lead him away without getting crushed yourself. Especially since the fucker doesn't even have to jump or step on you to crush you. Nah, you just have to touch the bastard to get smushed by him. I thought we were past all that shit. And to make matters even worse, when you do get the can, it only lasts for a couple seconds, so you've pretty much got to fire straight away in order to hit the wazzock, otherwise you won't have enough time, and then you lose the missile and have to fuck around getting another one. God damn it, I hate this game! Well, what the fuck you still playing it for then, you daft cunt? Fuck off, Dad, you can't talk to me like this anymore. I'm a man now. So yeah, this was a bit annoying, but at least when you finally do beat the prick, you get to have a go with his leg things and crush everything in your path, so that's kinda cool. And I guess that leads on nicely to the other unique set pieces you find throughout the game, which again help things from becoming stale and repetitive. Like at the ends of several levels, you go through the teensy highways, which are basically just some extra platforming bits what you fly through on your Silver Surfer hoverboard thing, going along these short platforms. And you've just got to jump from one to the next while grabbing as many jewels as you can along the way. And while they are simple, they still can be quite difficult at first because you're moving pretty fast, so you've got to have the reflexes of, I don't know, Jensen Button on crystal meth. Look, I'm running out of reflex-based analogies here, okay? But it's okay, because if you do miss a jump, then that irritating Nick Glowbox will just catch you with his helicopter thing that he just randomly has now, and put you back where you were. So yeah, while these bits could be a little annoying, I did enjoy them, and actually wish there could have been a few more like them. And some of these bits get pretty random too. Like you've got a couple points where one of Rayman's feet or shoes or whatever will just spontaneously take on a life of its own and decide that it doesn't feel like being part of your body anymore. So then you shrink down and start driving your other shoe like it's some kind of souped up dodgem car, and then you just have to chase the little bastard around, smashing into it over and over to essentially beat it into submission. Yeah, can't say I've seen that before. And beyond that, there's a whole bunch of other unique set pieces, particularly in the later half of the game. Like at one point, it goes all Assassin's Creed Black Flag, where you're on board an old rig ship and have to defend it from hoodlum pirates, I guess. I would make a Skull and Bones joke here, but that load of wank's already a big enough joke as it is. Then we even get a bit of COD action later on, with an on-rails bit where you're on a turret and shooting down a bunch of hoodlums in their flying things, so that's pretty cool. And then straight after you get to fly your own flying thing yourself, and that's cool as well, when you're not crashing into shit every 2 seconds, cause well, let's just say it don't control the best. But yeah, like with Rayman 2, the unique challenges and set pieces help keep the gameplay interesting and from becoming repetitive, even more so I think this time. And we might as well talk more about the boss fights, since there are more than there were in Rayman 2, and like the combat, they're a lot more fleshed out this time. Like next, you come to some swamp or bog or whatever where you end up fighting this old witch ogre thing. And this was annoying as all hell as well, since you're trapped in this confined area with this big ass cauldron in your way, so it's really hard to the point of being virtually impossible to hit the bitch. I mean, I don't think I ever managed it, even when I was curving my punches. And instead, the best way to get her is to hit the cauldron and make some of the witch's brew fly out and hit her, which then turns her into a frog and makes her easier to hit, and also makes your attacks do more damage. But of course, she can get you with the brew and turn you into a frog as well, so then you can't fight back, and all you can do is just hop around and wait until you turn back. And it happened pretty often, since your move's quite fast and the potion stuff lingers on the ground for a second or two, so it's easy to touch you by accident when moving around trying to hit the old wench, especially with her throwing out more and more of it as the fight continues. Yeah, I hated this bit. Then later on, you end up fighting this guy who looks like if Mick Taylor from Wolf Creek became a Sesame Street character, who chases you around his house with his big ass gun, and you've just got to bray the shit out of him. But then every once in a while he runs off, and then it switches to a POV shot of him aiming at you, and you've got to take cover before he fills you full of lead. Then you chase him down to his basement, where you've got to fight the guy again, while he's doing his best Miley Cyrus impression, swinging around on his big wrecking ball. And again, you've just got to beat the shit out of him, while running around on these narrow walkways. So yeah, despite the boss fights being a bit more challenging and annoying than in the previous game, I am glad that they're more frequent and fleshed out this time around, just cause overall it makes the game more interesting. Like the previous title, the graphics are about as good as what you would expect for the time. The art style retains the same more realistic look as the second game, but is a bit more vibrant and colourful I think, probably due to the fact that there's a lot more variety in the levels and environments this time around. But while all the main console games are the same, there is a noticeable difference in the graphics across the various systems, with the version on Xbox possessing higher resolution textures and a better frame rate. Not surprising considering it was the most powerful console around back then. While the version I've primarily been playing on PS2 is actually the weakest graphically, but in the end it doesn't really matter which version you choose, they all look fine enough. The voice acting is well, it's decent I suppose, which you'd expect considering this one's actually got some pretty big names in it. Like you've got Murphy being played by Billy West of Futurama and Looney Tunes fame, who you may remember actually voiced Bugs Bunny in the 2 PS1 games we looked at previously. And then we've got that knuckle-headed dummy Glowbox being played by Luigi Mario himself, John Leguizamo. So with the caliber of talent on board, the voice acting should be pretty good, which I suppose on the one hand it is. I mean, everybody seems to be trying, there's no awkward or stilted line reading or anything. But on the other hand, it's gotta be some of the worst voice acting I've ever heard, just cause of how annoying the voices are. It was seriously to the point that whenever certain characters opened their mouths, I wanted nothing more than to pour molten silver into my ears. I mean, for starters, they changed most of the voices of the returning characters, so now they sound nothing like what they did in Rayman 2. Like, you've got Murphy here, who in the previous game, the versions he appeared in at least, spoke in this kind of soft, whispering voice. And now for some reason, he's got a broad kind of New York accent or some shit, I don't know.
What? This is out of control. The manual claims that you can make a chopper out of your hair. Make a chopper of your hair. Huh, sounds like someone's been eating paint chips again.
While in Rayman 2, Glowbox just had this kind of stereotypical dullard voice. But in this one, he's got this daft high-pitched drawl that just grates the ears whenever you hear it. I didn't even realise it was John Leguizamo until I saw his name in the end credits.
Wow! Rayman, you turned on the light! Pretty!
And you know, it wouldn't be so bad if the wanker would just shut the fuck up for 5 fucking seconds. But no, of course he doesn't. He's always got some dumbass one-liner or quip for whatever's going on around you. And he follows you around for practically the whole game, so you can't get rid of him. And it's not like most of the shit he says is even that funny either, cause it's not. I guess just cause it's said in a stupid voice, that's just meant to make it funny. So yeah, while the acting isn't necessarily bad from a performance standpoint, it still just mostly drove me up the wall most of the times I heard it. And I guess we've got to discuss the pretty weird, edgier and more mature sense of humour this game has, especially compared to its predecessors, which were more or less squeaky clean in that regard. Yeah, I was honestly quite surprised by the amount of, I don't know if adult humour is the right term, but definitely more mature jokes, which I most certainly have no memory of from when I played this back in the day. And to be honest, probably flew right over my head back then anyway. And it's just like, what's the point? I mean, this is a kids game after all. I guess this was just the time where kids shit just needed to have an attitude and be more edgy. And I suppose there might have been some older players too, old enough to get the edgier jokes. But even then they don't work, cause they're just not funny. I mean, I never laughed. For the most part, I was just like, why? Like, for example, there's this bit late in the game where you're fighting your way through the Hoodlum's main base, and there's this female Hoodlum, I guess, speaking over the PA system, who for some reason speaks in this really over-the-top, stereotypical, sultry, sexy voice the whole time.
Good day. You are entering the headquarters of the Black Lambda. Exterior temperature, -61 degrees. Interior temperature, 98.6 degrees and rising.
Wow, that lady's got a lovely voice. I'd sure like to meet her. Arr.
And like I say, it's just like, why? What's the joke? What, because it's in this seductive voice so kids will probably pick up on the fact that it's something rude and naughty and so they'll laugh, even though they don't really understand what they're laughing at? I just fail to see the point. So yeah, overall I just found the edgier and more mature humour in this one to be completely at odds with the other games in the series, which were a lot more wholesome and innocent, and that kind of dragged it down for me a bit. Yeah, I know that might come across as a bit hypocritical coming from me, although I wouldn't have minded so much if it was actually funny, but like I said, it wasn't. It was mostly just annoying. So anyway, as the story continues, you end up meeting with a bunch of weird teensy doctors who all try and fail to get the nasty black cyst out of Glowbox, until they finally realise that all they need to do is combine their power together. And yeah, that does the trick apparently. But god damn it, now the malignant little bastard's loose again, and off to cause more trouble. At least when he was inside that deformed Teletubby Glowbox, he was contained. Why'd we have to get him out? Couldn't we have just buried the dumb nut somewhere? That would have at least kept the evil from escaping. But no, so now I've got to track down the little black bubo, who then teams up with this ugly motherfucker, and it's mostly just the same from here on out. You and old Lummox here just fight your way through more hoodlums and shit. And you also gain a new power where you can turn defeated black lums back into red ones by pulling a face at them, like in the original. Why does that matter? Well, it actually comes into play later on, although this is the only new ability you get throughout the whole game, which is kind of disappointing. I mean, you don't find any more power cans beyond the 5 there are, so it does get a bit repetitive in that regard. I just think it would have been nice if we could have gained some more abilities over the course of the game, or got some upgrades for the ones we do have, to make the gameplay even more varied, but it's not that big of an issue. But anyway, from here it's pretty much just on to the final boss. But before we do that, if you recall earlier I mentioned that you unlock some extra stuff like mini games from scoring highly during the main game, so I thought we'd take a time out and have a look at some of those first. First we've got 2D Madness, which as you'll probably guess is again just a side-scrolling bit in the style of Rayman 1, because it seems I just can't escape from this shit. And yeah, this plays pretty much just like the original Atrocity. You just run through this level, collecting jewels, jumping platforms and beating up enemies, etc. and get to the end before the time runs out. You've got all the same moves, although the platforming may actually be slightly harder here than in the original if you can believe it, since it uses different physics, which while may work well in a 3D environment, don't really translate as well into 2D. Oh, and this time you don't even have any health. Seriously, you so much as touch an enemy or a hazard and that's it, game over, and you've got to start the whole thing all over again. I mean, fuck man, even the original wasn't that cruel. So yeah, it's just one level, and what happens when you reach the end? I don't know, I never made it that far. Yeah, again, there was only so much I could take before I was like, fuck this shit. Next up we've got Racket Jump, which is basically just tennis, but instead of rackets, using shields or barrel lids or something. And this was a load of bullshit because I just couldn't figure out how to hit the ball back properly. And yeah, one go with that's enough to last me forever, pretty much. Next up we've got Crush, which takes place in the bit where you were fighting old Miley the Muppet earlier, but this time we're the ones controlling the wrecking ball, and you've just got to move it over the toads what come up from the holes and then squash as many as you can before the time runs out. Very much a classic whack-a-mole situation. And this was actually pretty hard as well, because you've got to move fast but accurately at the same time, because if you miss you can end up sending the ball down the hole and then you have to wait for it to come back up, which wastes loads of time. Then next we've got Raise Off Circus, and this is simple enough. It's just a short FPS level where you go around Mick Taylor's house blasting all the targets within the time limit. But you've got to be careful, because if you hit so much as one wrong target, again, there you go, game over. But aside from that, it's pretty easy. Next is Sentinel. What's that?
Killing machine designed for one thing.
Search and destroy.
Nah, instead you play as one of the bomber hoodlums, and you've got to defend your tower from the Canaran things what you come up against later on in the main game. They come from various directions, and you've just got to throw bombs at them to stop them before they reach the tower. But it's pretty hard to hit them, because you've got to judge the distance and keep the button held down for the right length of time, and it can be pretty hard to get the timing right, so you often end up either throwing it too far or not far enough. Yeah, this was another one I gave up on after just a couple tries. Man, most of these mini games are actually pretty hard. The only one I've been able to beat so far is the shooting one. Then there's Missile Command, which is pretty much what it says on the tin. You've got one of the missiles from the orange can, and you've just got to guide it through the track or course or whatever. Not much more to say. Then we've got balloons. Again, pretty self-explanatory. You play as Ray again, and you've just got to bounce from balloon to balloon and get to the end before the time runs out, picking up jewels along the way to replenish your time. Yeah, simple enough. It's just annoying because it can be hard to judge the distance between some of the balloons, so it can be easy to miss. And then, you guessed it, you've got to start all over again. Then next, oh Jesus Christ, how many of these fucking things are there? We've got Special Invaders, and again, this is simple enough. You're just flying on the flying thing again and have to make it through the course, again within the time limit. Well that's fine, or it would be, if it actually controlled well and you didn't crash into shit every 2 seconds, even when you pass close to something without actually touching it, but whatever. So overall, the mini games are fine enough, if a bit redundant. Like me, you'll probably just play them once and then forget about them, which is probably why they made them so hard, to make you spend more time on them. But whatever, it's more content I suppose. But anyway, for the final boss, we've got to fight this Reflux guy, who we actually already fight once earlier. But whereas that was a challenging but fun and satisfying fight, this was honestly pretty insane, and the only truly hard bit in the whole game. Mostly just cause it goes on for fucking ever. It starts off pretty simple. You just use the blue claw power to bring his shield down and then switch over to the red power and smack him around with your heavy fists. Then the guy sticks his scepter thing in himself, which I guess must contain the forced evolutionary virus from Fallout or something, because then he turns into a super mutant behemoth or some shit. So then you've got to run around the edge of the arena to get the blue claws and then make it back again, avoiding all the guy's attacks on the way, some of which are actually pretty hard to avoid. Then when you get back to the other side, you use the blue claws to swing yourself up to the red fists, at which point the guy will try and hit you and get stuck, and then you just run up his arm and bash the scepter a few times to hurt him. And this goes on for a while, because after hurting him a bit, you lose the red fist, so then you've got to run all the way back round to the other side to get the blue claws, and then back again to get the fists so you can hit him again, over and over again. And once you've beaten that stage, you then end up getting sucked into some kind of gravity well or something. And then it becomes a platforming bit where you're not even fighting the guy, you're just using the flying power to make your way up to the top of this bit. Oh, and if you get killed at all during any of these bits, then of course it's right back to the beginning. And not just that, but it actually puts you back to the start of the previous area, where there's nothing to do except run on through, grabbing jewels and lums and shit. And it's just like, what did you put me back here for? Why not just let me start from the beginning of the fight? Why make me do this pointless shit again? Just to make it all just that little bit more annoying? But anyway, you just make it to the top of the gravity well, get the orange can and fire a missile at the scepter. And that's it. We got him, right? Whoa, hold your horses there, matey. Cause just when we thought we were done, the fucker goes through another one of his nemesis mutations or whatever, and now he's got wings. Well, that's just great, isn't it? So now it's time for the second half of the fight. Why this needed to go on any longer than it already has, I don't know, but whatever. It's just another turret bit, and you've got to shoot with the magic egg thing on top of him to hurt him, as well as hitting the stuff he throws at you before it hits you. You've got to take his health down twice for some reason, but we're still not done, because after that he then lands and goes into his power armor lockup or whatever, and then all the black lums that I guess are inside him come flying out. And then we get this bit where you fly in the flying thing, and you've got to drop bombs to kill as many of the hoodlums before they go back inside the big guy, reducing his maximum health as you go. And once all the hoodlums are gone, both from you killing them and going back inside them, it's back to the turret bit, but with the guy's health having been reduced. And then you've just got to go through it all again. Take down his health twice, he does his Weeping Angel impression, you fly around blitzing more of the hoodlums and reducing the big fucker's health until he's got none left. And I meant it when I said this goes on for fucking ever. And again, it's just like, why? I mean, what do we need all this shit for? Wasn't the first fight sufficient enough? Or why couldn't we just have the turret bit? Why bother with all this other shit? I don't get it. But at least if you get killed here, you don't have to go back and do the first fight again, which I admit I was slightly worried about, so that's something I suppose. But anyway, once you finally drop the guy's health to 0, that's him dead and there's just that little piece of shit Andre left. You pull a funny face at him, so he told you to be back later, he turns back into a red lum, and yeah, that's it. All the rest of the evil, nasty black lums turn back into nice red ones. I guess it's just like with the White Walkers in Game of Thrones, the world saved, Ray and Glowbox return to the forest where they contemplate on how the black lums came to be in the first place. I guess we'll never know. But wait a minute. What? Rayman, your hands are doing something naughty. Can't you keep them under control? Wait, what are they doing? You don't mean. Oh my god, it is! Rayman, your hands did this. Your filthy, evil, immoral hands. Oh, whatever will we do now? And yeah, that's the end. Wow, what a cliffhanger. So that was Rayman 3 Hoodlum Havoc on PS2, and in conclusion, overall I'd say, yeah, it's a decent successor to Rayman 2, and an all-round great way to end the original trilogy. The gameplay builds well upon that of its predecessor and has some good ideas of its own. The new powers add some fun new dimensions, and the new set pieces and boss fights help keep things interesting and from becoming repetitive. It controls well, the combat and platforming are more complex and interesting, and overall, gameplay wise, I'd say it's the best of the series. That being said, I was less a fan of the presentation side side in this one. The graphics and soundtrack are both fine, but I absolutely hated the voice acting, which again wasn't even bad in terms of performance. It's just, why'd they have to give most of the characters such annoying voices? And then you've got the bizarre and more mature humour that just seems off when you compare it to its predecessors, which are a lot more wholesome. I mean, I guess it gives this one its own distinct identity within the series, but I just didn't take to it all that well. But despite that, I did really enjoy this one, and if you haven't played it, then I recommend you give it a go. But anyway, that's pretty much it for the 3D Rayman games. Yeah, Ray did have a few more adventures since, but none of them have been in the same style as 2 and 3. There was originally gonna be a Rayman 4, which was gonna be in full 3D, and apparently would feature areas from Rayman 1, like the music and art themed worlds, but it ended up getting cancelled, which is a shame, because it would have been interesting to see what those environments would have looked like in 3D with updated graphics. The next we'd see of Ray would be in the party game, Raven Rabbids, originally on Wii, and the next proper title in the series would be in 2011 with Rayman Origins, what went back to being a 2D side-scroller, then followed by Rayman Legends, again a 2D side-scroller. But that was all the way back in 2013, and there hasn't been a proper game since, meaning that much like with Driver, the series is pretty much just laying dormant, while Ubisoft continues to churn out mediocre open world games and NFT shite. Yeah, and you wonder why you're going under and having to sell off half your shit to the Chinese. Well, maybe if you pulled your fingers out of your arses and gave us a new Rayman game in 3D, then you wouldn't be, would ya? Well, that's just my 2 cents. So anyway, I did say we'd take a look at the Game Boy version as well, so let's do that real quick. We start off just after that globulous dunderhead Glowbox has chowed down on Andre, with he and Ray trying to figure out what to do about it. But then we catch up with, oh, look who it is! It's old Captain Razor Prick. I was wondering when we'd be hearing from you again, who as it turns out is also after the Black Lump, so I guess he can take over the world or some shit. So rather than being a direct port of Rayman 3, based on some of the dialogue, it looks more like this is a sequel to Rayman 2, while also working in some of the plot elements from Rayman 3. Interesting. And as you might expect, what with it being on Game Boy, it's just another 2D side-scroller in the style of Rayman 1. You've got all the same abilities, and you're just running, jumping and climbing your way through these levels, collecting jewels, smashing cages and beating the shit out of the Cylon pirates again. At least until you get a couple levels in, at which point you meet the Fairy Lee and then go through the swamp water skiing bit, just like in Rayman 2, which, yeah, plays pretty much exactly the same as in Rayman 2. So this is actually starting to look like it's just Rayman 2 on Game Boy, but with the story of Rayman 3. And if you needed any more proof of that, the very next level is just the bit where you're rescuing Lee in the console version, but in 2D. So yeah, that's kind of bizarre, given we already had Rayman 2 on Game Boy, so I'm not really sure why we needed it again, but as a hybrid with Rayman 3, I don't know, maybe the studio what made it didn't have much time to come up with ideas, so they just nicked a load of shit from the previous game, who knows. But regardless, it's a decent enough port. It looks and plays well enough, probably would have been good to take on holiday or on a long car trip back in the day. But we're not done yet, because oh, what's this? Hoodlum's Revenge. What's that? Oh god, it's not gonna be like Custer's Revenge, is it? Cause that shit'll most definitely not fly on YouTube these days. But no, it's nothing like that, just, yeah, turns out there wasn't just one Rayman 3 game on Game Boy, there was actually 2. Okay. Well, I got time, why don't we take a quick look at this one as well? So once again, we start with old Ray and Glowbox sleeping in the woods, with the adult-brained amphibian dreaming about the time he swallowed Andre. Oh, so this is a sequel to Rayman 3, I guess. But anyway, the doof vanishes and now we've got to find him. And then we see that it's actually played in isometric view, the only title out of the entire franchise to be so. But aside from that, the gameplay is largely similar to the main games in the series. You've got all the same abilities and you're just going around collecting lums and jewels, smashing cages and beating up bad guys with your naughty, evil, lum-corrupting hands. So yeah, sounds simple enough, right? Well, No, actually this is probably the hardest and most frustrating game out of Rayman 3 and its spin-offs. Why? Well, it mostly comes down to the isometric view, really. See, naturally, due to the camera angle, you can only see so far around you, and while you do have the ability to look around to see further, being unable to move the camera means that it can be hard to see exactly where you can jump to, and also to judge your jumps as well. So there'll be times where you're leaping from one platform to another, but a lot of the time you can't actually see the platform you're jumping to. Meaning that if you don't jump from the correct spot, or if you jump to a bit what you can't grab onto, then you usually just end up in the water or whatever, which while doesn't kill you immediately, so you've got a chance to get out, still does so quick enough that unless you get out and onto dry land straight away, you're pretty much fucked. And this didn't just happen once or twice either. Nah, it was pretty much constant, cause you just can't see where you're jumping to half the time. Yeah, I'm starting to see why they only did the isometric view once in the whole series. And again, there was only so much of that I could take before I once again uttered the immortal words, fuck this shit. But there you go, that's Rayman 3 done, along with our binge of the original trilogy. Yeah, as with the likes of Spyro and Crash Bandicoot, there were more games after the older and arguably more famous titles in the series, but like with those, I never played them. So this'll be the last we'll be seeing of old Ray on the channel, at least for a while. But yeah, it's been fun, for the most part. I hope this latest trip down memory lane has been enjoyable, and if you've never played the original Rayman games, I'd say definitely give 2 and 3 a go. And as for 1, well, if you're just looking for a fun and relaxing time, then I'd say give it a miss. But if you're up for a serious challenge to really test your mettle and patience, then by all means, go for it. Just don't come crying to me. And yeah, that's that. Well, there you go. There's another classic series to scratch off the list. Sorry that these last couple videos have taken longer to come out than usual. I just found them pretty hard to write, like I usually do with good games, since it's just harder to find things to talk about and make fun of. But yeah, hopefully the next ones won't take as long, so stay tuned. But anyway, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, then leave a like. If you didn't, then go fuck yourself. We're still trying to reach 1,000 subscribers, so if you enjoy my content and have yet to subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it if you would do so. And as always, thank you so much to everyone who already has. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.